Yes, please.
Oh, it says meeting is now streaming live, so I guess we're starting. Hello, everyone. On behalf of Roxanne's husband, Kat, or her assistant and friend, Sarah, and myself, I want to thank you all for coming to Roxanne's memorial. So many people loved Roxanne, whether they knew her as Roxanne Conrad or Rachel Caine, that we thought it best to hold the room to close family and friends, but live stream the memorial to her YouTube channel for other friends and fans who were always like family to Roxanne. So if you're watching via YouTube, please feel free to post pictures and memories, or even a favorite scene, character, or quote on the YouTube page, which we'll keep as a memory wall for all to visit. I know a few who didn't want to speak on camera will be posting there as well. If you're here and want to see the scrolling pictures that people have sent, there's a window, I don't know where it'll be for everybody or how well you'll be able to see it, but it will be showing the slideshow. Again, thank you so much. As for me, I'm Lucienne Diver, Roxanne's longtime agent. And yes, I had to write even that down for fear that I would not be able to say all of this if it weren't right before me. We've worked together for 18 years, for as long as she was Rachel Caine, though she was always Rox to me. It's impossible to say goodbye to someone like Roxanne, someone who's meant so much to us all, and who lives on not only in her words and her works, but in the way that she's touched all of our lives. So we're not really here to say goodbye, but to celebrate the incredible person she was and the lasting impression she left behind. Roxanne was such a fighter and had already survived so much that it seemed nearly impossible to believe that she wouldn't beat this back as well through sheer force of will and her indomitable spirit. If anyone could have, it would most certainly have been Rox. She'd survived a previous bout of cancer that had her undergoing radiation treatments that gave her acute burns, and yet bolstered the spirits of everyone pulling for her with her still not dead blog posts, which were wildly funny and yet informative, so that others going through treatment would know how to prepare and what to expect. She was always thinking of others, even amidst her own struggles. Roxanne was every bit as lovely and big-hearted as she was talented. She used to wake up at ungodly hours to write. As an inveterate insomniac, I remember once wandering through a hotel lobby headed for caffeine when we were at the same convention. No makeup, whatever clothes I could grab, hoping that at that hour I wouldn't see a soul. And there was Roxanne set up in the lobby with her laptop propped up in her lap, already hard at work. No doubt she expected to have the place to herself and some uninterrupted time to work. But there was an aspiring author at her side, and Roxanne was listening to her ideas and giving her pointers. Seeing me walk bleary-eyed through the lobby, she called me over and made introductions. She introduced this aspiring author to her agent right then and there, making connections, giving of herself and of her time. I'm sure I was not nearly as helpful, as I barely grunt before coffee and can't form actual words, let alone string them into sentences. But Roxanne was amazing. That's who she was. When we first started working together, Roxanne was working crazy hours with a long commute and still turning in multiple books a year. If I tried to write that quickly and with the schedule that she had, my work would be unreadable. But Rox hit it out of the park every time. I'm a workaholic, yet I'm an amateur next to Rox. And her works weren't just wonderful, they were empowering, are empowering. Whether they were about human teenagers in a vampire-run town making a difference, the seemingly powerless standing up to those in power, or the wife of a serial killer systematically gaslit and groomed so that she wouldn't ask questions, until her husband's truth is discovered and everyone thinks she must have known and that it's appropriate to meet violence with violence. She writes stories of people finding their inner strength, rising to meet adversity, rebuilding or remaking themselves to become their own saviors or to champion others. I said my piece in the last package I sent to her, and I'll read it here, though I know I won't be able to do it without tears. Dear Rox, I can't begin this like a regular letter, so let me start with how much you mean to me. You're more than an author, you're an inspiration. I see you and how much you care about people and put them first. How you write so amazingly because you see people, you empathize, you put yourself in their shoes and you are there. You put us there. As a result, you allow others to think, to consider, to empathize. Anyone who knows you is touched by you, and anyone who's read your work is affected by your stories. Anytime I think I don't change the world by being a literary agent, I think of the power of words to change minds, and I know that I make a difference because you do. Love you, Roxanne. I'll turn things over to Kat now, if Kat, you're ready to say a few words.
There aren't many words that I can say at this point. I'm usually not at a loss for words, and I'd intended to write something out, but I knew that I couldn't match anything that Rox would have written herself for someone else. So I feel that others should speak for her, and people that have been touched by her and her friends who all have strong feelings of their own and want to share those with us. I love you all, and that is where I'm going to leave it.
Okay, everybody. I'm up next. I have to just find my notes. I'm sorry. I had to write everything down so that I would not forget what I wanted to say. I'm Ann Sowards, and I have the pleasure of editing many of the books that Roxanne published with Penguin over the years. I was trying to remember when I first started working with Roxanne, and it was hard because it's been so many years. It almost felt like there was no time that we weren't working together, that we always had been together. As near as I can remember, it was towards the last few books of the Weather Warden series, sometime around Thin Air, maybe 2007. And I specifically asked to work with her when her original editor left the company because she was such a great writer and I loved her books. I quickly learned how unfailingly professional, hardworking, and kind she was. At one point, I was editing 4 of her books a year, 2 adult books and 2 young adult books. And I was astounded at how she always delivered such stellar manuscripts when she only had a few months to write them. She truly had a gift for writing believable, compelling characters and stories that pulled me in, and she worked hard over the years to perfect her craft. With the amount of books we were publishing, it seemed like something was always due and we were always juggling schedules. I felt like I had to always apologize to her for not being able to give her very much time to revise. But she always came through beautifully. And if there was any kind of bump with her writing schedule, she unfailingly kept me informed. We worked together to come up with a plan. When I would write a draft of the cover copy, which is like the description of the book for readers, she would make it a zillion times better. When we talked about edits she could make so the book could be even stronger, she always thanked me and told me how much my notes and suggestions helped her find the strengths of the story. And not all authors do that. As an editor, I've always been behind the scenes doing what I can to make Rox and her book shine. And for such a talented writer to tell me that my ideas were insightful and helped her make the books better truly meant the world to me. And that's what Roxanne was like. That was the kind of person that she was. I didn't get to see Rox in person a lot, maybe once or twice a year, usually at San Diego Comic-Con. She made everyone she talked to feel special and always had time for her fans. I always loved the chance to catch up with her and Kat and have fond memories of just hanging out with them over dinner. She had a lot of challenges over the years, and she always handled them with grace and with humor. And even at the end, when she was going through so many treatments, she wanted to keep all of us informed and entertained. like Lucienne said, talking about her health updates. And after one of her health updates about chemo really made me laugh out loud. And I thanked her and I told her that I knew how weird it sounded in this context, but the way she shared her experiences was so engaging and fascinating. And that I was absolutely hitting her up for advice if I needed chemo. And her response was, I was afraid my TMI was TTM, too much. But I also thought it was both slightly entertaining and maybe would make someone else feel less bad about their own experiences. She wanted to make us feel less bad about our own experiences. She was always thinking about other people. She was always telling me how much she appreciated me. I appreciate Roxanne too, more than words can say. And I'm grateful I was able to be a part of her life and to be a tiny part of helping her books find readers. And all of those wonderful books will be bringing readers joy for years to come. Really love you, Roxanne.
Hi, I am Anna Ure. I have the privilege of having written 3 books with Roxanne. Roxanne was one of the kindest, most generous people I have ever known. Nothing illustrates that better than this story. A mutual friend named Bree mentioned on Twitter that she wished she had a particular ergonomic rainbow keyboard. 3 days later, it arrived at Bree's house. Roxanne had played Keyboard Fairy and made Bree's dreams come true. Later, Bree told me privately how much it meant to her, how much she had been hurting, and maybe she wouldn't even be able to write to this day without this wonderful, unexpected gift. That's what Roxanne was to me, a precious, unexpected gift. I admired her and wanted to be like her as a writer long before we became friends. Once I got to know her, I treasured her friendship. And later, after we started writing together, I discovered truly how magical and marvelous she was. We used to joke that we shared a brain, and for me, that is the highest compliment I could ever receive, if you know her well. One theme that we've been hearing tonight is that she was always thinking of others. And I'm going to say that as well. This year, as she struggled, she still remembered her friends. She sent emails, updates, trying to be cheerful because she didn't want anyone to feel bad. She even remembered my birthday this year with everything she was facing. And I would encourage her to vent, but she seldom said much about what she was going through because she was worried about my feelings, concerned about making me feel bad. She never wanted to trouble those who loved her, even when I wished that she would ask, because I wanted to do anything, everything for her. Sometimes I wake up and I can't believe that I will never see her again or talk to her. But I do take comfort in the words she left and in the stories we created together. When I miss her, I can read her words, but I wish we had taken more pictures together. I wish I had visited more. I wish we hadn't run out of time. But I hope she's having an adventure now. I always think of her at night when I look up at the stars. And if the old stories are true, she's shining down on us. Energy can't be lost, only transmuted. So a soul as bright as hers must have taken its place in the firmament. I will always miss you, Rox. I love you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, well, I also wrote down because I knew that I would start rambling and not be able to get through this if I did not. So I too, like several people have said, was a fan of Rox's before we became collaborators and fast friends. I actually still remember feeling as if I'd learned the secret identity of a superhero when I found out Rachel Caine was only her writing name and her real name was Roxanne. It was like being let into a little secret corner of, oh, this person that you've looked up to for all these years is a person. And what a person she was. And I only met her in 2017. It seems unbelievable now. Such a short and long time ago. Rox, Carrie Ryan, who is here as well. And I did a project together, during which I checked today. We sent each other more than 1,000 messages. So it's meant to be a little side project. But when you make a thing with someone, a complicated story like that you're all proud of, you learn a lot about each other. But I learned so much from Rox, both before and after that as a writer, but also just as a good person in the world. And I found myself thinking today, writing this, about the things I didn't and don't know about her and the conversations we never got to have. But I know she was one of those rare special people who is exactly the person they seem to be. I know she believed in kindness and generosity and going swinging for the fights worth fighting, in accountability, and in the magic spark you can only find through hard work. She definitely believed in hard work. When her, I guess, the renewed round of medical trouble started in 2017, one of the first emails I got was, should I step down off the project we're doing? And I'm like, no, we will move heaven and earth. And the fact that you're even thinking about that, it's like, if you need to step off the project, yes, otherwise, no. But she also believed in laughter and was such a funny person and such a joy to be around. And I think all of this, everything that everyone has said, comes through in her work too. And so, Rox will never be forgotten. We'll all keep learning from her and her memory. And I thought I'd close with a quote from Maggie Smith's "Keep Moving," but sometimes your own words just aren't good enough. And with special love for those of you who were her rare and special people. Let the hard days be hard. When you mourn a person, it's a form of love. You mourn their loss because they mattered, because the world without them is diminished. Sit still with your grief if you need to, then lift it and carry it with you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jackie Kessler. I've started and restarted and rewritten the speech because I have so many feelings about Rox that it seems impossible to know where to start or how to boil it down to just one or two things. The crazy thing is that it's not even like we were best friends who spoke to each other all the time or saw each other frequently. We saw each other only a handful of times. And the way that we communicated primarily was email. We would have these extended conversations through email that would last for days. You would think we would just pick up the phone, but maybe it was because we were writers. We liked email. That's primarily how we spoke. When we did see each other, that was at conventions. And even then, those were whirlwinds of activity with Rox on this panel or that workshop or that signing, and me on that panel, that workshop, that signing. And there was a lot of ships in the night with a quick hug and a wave. But the way that we got to really see each other was sneaking out of the conventions and go get a meal. Rox always knew where the terrific Mexican food was. She would gather a group of us and we would go and have good food and drink good wine and just talk about everything. We would laugh a lot and we would plot. Oh, the plotting. One time, a group of us were out and we were talking about book covers, and that led to talking about vampires selling cosmetics, as it naturally does. And that led to us writing a short story, round robin style, just because. And I found out the hard way that following Rachel Caine in a round robin lineup is really challenging. Even though I saw her rarely and only over a small stretch of years. And even though the way that we spoke tended to be through email, Rox has meant so much to me for a long, long time. Memories are these strange, shifting things that kind of soften over time. The memory itself softens, but the feelings behind that memory, those get stronger. And I remember certain things about Rox. She was funny, witty, and passionate. She cared deeply about her friends. She had some incredible playlists. She was quick to grab that check. She was gracious and warm and more than a little wicked. And what I feel about Rox is that she was and is and will continue to be an inspiration. I love her and I miss her, and she will always be an important part of my life. Her memory will always be a blessing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Mayberry. I'm a novelist and editor. I've got a couple of just little anecdotes about my experience getting to know Roxanne, because when I first heard about her, I had seen her books everywhere, because you can't not run into a Rachel Caine book. I actually thought it was one of those things where it was a house name and there were 4 or 5 people chunking out books. And I forget who I was talking to at the time. It might have been Dallas Mayer. I'm not sure, but we were talking about high output writers, and he stood there and looked at his watch for a few seconds and said, "Yeah, she just wrote another book," because she would just knock stuff out. When I finally got to meet her, I was kind of surprised, because I expected this like Olympian powerhouse writer, with like really muscular fingers from typing that fast, and she was just this sweet lady, and you see the sweetness, you hear the intelligence when you talk to her, but you don't really get a sense of the engine that was at work inside of her all the time. And not that she was like such a workaholic that she couldn't be human. It's just that when she got into the game, And early on, I met her when I was fairly new into the fiction world. I've been a novelist for 14 years. I met her a couple of years after, I think my second or third book. It was probably BEA or one of the other 3,000 or 4,000 events she did per year. And we were talking, and I said that, she asked me what I was writing. And I said, well, I've got an idea. I'm working on this 3rd book in this series. I'm thinking about changing genres and do something else, but I also might want to do YA. And she said, well, do it. I said, which one? She said, no, do it. Do everything. I'm like, but, I don't know if I'm going to be any good at this stuff. And, she wasn't that huge a person. And I'm gigantic. I'm 6'4". So she grabbed me by the front of my shirt and pulled me down and says, you have no proof it will not work. You ought to do it. And I said, so there. And, it's like, okay, that wrist is firmly slapped now. She just told me that I could, and, and had no, none of the propagandized warnings about, oh, it's going to be tough, or, oh, it's, too big a hill to climb. It's not your genre. That just wasn't her. She was so joyful and so optimistic about publishing that she said, anytime you have an idea, you got to try it. Well, then flip around a little later, and I started editing anthologies, and I'd reach out to her, or I'd see her at a convention, or we'd be on a panel, and I would say, I'm about to edit a new anthology. It's about, and she'd say, yeah, I'm in. I never actually got to the it's a and filled in the blank, because she was just game. I swear, if I had told her it was going to be, a Curious George serial killer anthology, she'd have had a story for it that fast. That was her. She just was she was one of those true writers, someone who understood the craft and understood the business. And even though the business is somewhat complicated, and God knows it's changed a lot in the last 14 years since I've been in it, she rolled with it, she changed with it, and she embraced it. She enjoyed the changes as growth rather than speed bumps. And that was really important for me. And I passed it along to a lot of other writers, that when something changes, look for how it's changing for the better and run with that. And that was Roxanne, right down to the marrow. She always loved to be able to try something new. And she was so much fun to talk to, because, every time, I forget who was mentioned. Was it Gwenda? I'm not sure. That she had run into her at a conference and she was writing, or maybe it was Jackie. Every time I saw her, she was writing, and then she would scold me for not having my laptop. She's the reason I bought an iPad, so I could write anytime I paused mid-stride for at least a second. She said, get a paragraph done. And I started doing that. I know that I'm only one of many, many, many people that she has influenced in a positive way. And that influence is not going to stop now. It's going to continue to grow because we tell these stories about her. We talk about what we learned from her, how she inspired us, how she made it fun and joyful to do all of this, and how she inspired the courage in us to do these things within the publishing world. And, you know, you got to go a long, long way to find a better example of courage. So we'll be telling Roxanne stories for a long, long, long time. And I'm happy to keep telling those stories to every writer I meet, all the people I teach, kids that I've taught in writing classes. She's become my go-to anecdote for how to do this well, how to do it joyfully, and to always be surprised at what opportunities life is giving. That's her. So I didn't want to talk about any of the negative. I wanted to talk about the great stuff about her. And, you know, she fills me with joy every day. So Roxanne, Rachel, thank you so much.
Hey everybody, my name's Tom Provost and I'm a filmmaker in Los Angeles. And I got to know Roxanne about 10 years ago over a project we were trying to do, which was to adapt a standalone novel of hers called Exile, which is a great novel. And while we tried to get it off the ground, and film business being what it is, we came really close a couple of times, something else magical happened. And it's what everybody's been saying tonight. We just became such good friends. It was very unexpected to me. And I just wanted to briefly kind of say what everybody else has been saying about how generous and wonderful she was. We connected over a number of things. And I think the first thing that we connected over that was wonderful, the very first time Kat and Rox and I had dinner, was our love of trains. And this is my Amtrak cup that I stole off the train because I love Amtrak so much. And it was like one of those moments where at dinner, when we both realized we loved being on trains, it was like, yes, okay, that was our first connection. And I've never met anyone as intelligent, anyone as talented. Talent and intelligence are just the greatest things, right? They're so attractive. They're so much fun to be around. And her force of will, as everyone is saying, was so amazing in this generous person. And whatever she had going on, she was always so busy. She always made time for me. And at least twice a year, we would have these dinners everybody's been talking about. And Kat, man, when the three of us would get together and it would go 3 or 4 hours and we would just laugh and have such a good time. She always grabbed the check. She's just such a generous person. And yeah, I'm like everybody else. I don't know what to do without her. It's sad, but it's also amazing. The lives that she touched. I remember when I was first going to meet with her, when you are going to meet with someone, you get to know them. And so I ran out and I was just going to read one of her books. And then I just tore through the Weather Reward series. I was like, this is amazing. This woman is so incredible. And as Anne said, I do believe she's on an adventure. I think she's on a train somewhere. And I just hope and trust that we will all be on that train with her one day. And yeah, this is not, for me, there's a lot of grief and a lot of sadness, but it's pure joy because she brought so much joy into my life. So God bless you, Roxanne. Love you to death. Thanks.
My name's AJ. I was lucky enough and blessed enough to get to meet Rox and Kat in kind of a strange, weird, roundabout way. One of Rox's friends had written a book that I'd picked up on my way to Iraq and loved, and wrote a letter saying, hey, this was great. Thank you so much for this amazing book, for keeping my mind off of, because this was my first deployment to Iraq. And the response back from Rox, who I hadn't even communicated with yet, and her one of her close friends was, oh, that's great. We're so glad you liked this book. Here, we're going to send you some books. And then I got a box that weighed about 150 pounds filled with every book that either of them had ever written. And as you guys have spoken, Rox redefined prolific writer. I mean, it was, I'm like, okay, wait, what? Okay, so this is really cool. This is a different job. It's the same person. Oh, okay. Then what drug? how is that the same person? And it was just, it was hundreds of books, but with seemingly no repetition. And it was amazing to the point where we actually created a lending library in Baghdad with all of the books that she'd written, so folks could pass them around. And then when I came back from Iraq, I ended up getting stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, and because I was local, I got the chance to get out there and to meet Rox and Kat, who is just, I mean, I love you, Kat, like a brother. I mean, you are part of my family, part of my heart, and to be blessed enough to spend time with them beyond the writer-reader relationship, but to truly be embraced, not just as a friend, but as family. And I'm sorry, I'm a crier, so I'm gonna cry, I'll tell you right now. You know, I was blessed, and that's the only way to describe it, with her friendship and her cooking, because as anybody who knew her well knew, she could cook. And so to get the opportunity to spend holidays with Rox and Kat and their family, and you know, embrace the friendship and the family relationship there, was something that I will always treasure. Not to mention the many Mexican food meals of incredible amounts of wonderful Mexican food, and her absolute joy and sense of adventure in everything that life had to offer. If there was something new to be discovered, whether it was a TV series, whether it was a new band, whether it was a new movie, every time you came over to her house, she'd be like, oh, I gotta show you something. And next thing you know, you were plopped in front of the TV, and she and Kat would be arguing over which thing to show you next. And it was just this unending stream of new experiences. And you know, it's like the talk has been about her on a new adventure. I kind of have this you know, this mental picture, this headcanon, if you will, of her kind of being like the end of Batman, where, you know, Alfred looks over and sees Batman sitting at the table. I kind of have this mental picture that 10 years from now, I'm going to be sitting in some cafe in Kathmandu and look over, and Rox will be sitting over and kind of like raise up her coffee as she types away on a keyboard. You know, she was one of the most wonderfully giving, beautifully loving, and just amazingly effusive people I've ever met. And I thank God every day for every minute that I got to spend with her. And I truly wish, you know, for all the people that are watching this stream that didn't have the opportunity to spend that time with her, I hope and I pray that somehow, some way, you find somebody that lives their life with half of the zest and zeal that Rox did with hers, and that they impart some bit of that love in your life. Thank you.
Listening to everybody's notes and wishing that I had actually written down something so that I won't lose it. I met Rox, I think it was 1991, when she was still writing as Roxanne Longstreet. And I acquired a book from her. And that relationship moved on to the Weather Warden series, where I was her editor for a long time. And I giggled more on conversations with her than any other writer I ever worked with. I mean, she taught me the joy of what we do, as well as the pleasure. But I moved on, went to full-time writing, and she was cheerleading me all the way. And then a little over a year ago, I was diagnosed with a tumor. And it was bad. And I reached out to her and I said, I don't know how to do this. And the next couple of months, through email and instant message and Twitter messaging, Roxanne gave me this incredible gift, which is that she was completely honest and kind of brutal about the things that we were going to go through and what was happening and finding the giggles in it. She gave me a shoulder to cry on, but she also gave me, once again, hope and a reality check, because what I was going through was horrible, and it was a betrayal of my body. And she was there and she understood, and she held my hand. And I know I would not have made it through as well as I did. Everybody's like, oh, you managed it so beautifully. I'm like, no, I had Roxanne to lean on. And she did all this knowing that I had a really good chance of survival and she didn't. And sorry. But she gave me so many gifts over the, oh God, what, 30 years we knew each other. And like the others, I can't believe she's gone. And I know that she'd be poking me right now and saying, oh, don't do that, don't do that. Anyway, I should have written something down rather than babbling, but she gave me this gift at the end of her life that allows me to carry on with my life. And I won't fuck it up. I won't mess it up, Rox, I promise.
That was beautiful, Laura. I didn't write anything down either. I met Rox more years than I'm going to admit long ago when we were all fangirls, and I used to run science fiction conventions and help authors find connections. And she was a part of our workshop. And quite a few authors actually came out of our little workshop. But even back then, when all of us were wannabes, we knew that Rox was the best of us. She had this amazing ability to just create stories, and she would start at the beginning and end at the end and never have to outline and never have to pre-plan and never have to do all the character building and world building that we were all struggling with. And we were always amazed at how she could just go and it would all be wonderful. But she challenged us too, because she would always have something and it was always good. And she would always see the best in what everyone else in the workshop had. And later years when we were all writers, I always felt shamed because she was working a full-time job and producing an amazing number of books. And I was having a terrible time just managing to get mine done on deadline without that kind of a brutal schedule. And yet, the thing I remember most about her is that when she was dealing with all the things in her life, even near the end of the battles she didn't win, that she would always contact me to check on me and tell me how much she worried about me and how much she thought that I was a wonderful person. And I couldn't understand that because I'm nothing compared to what she was, or how much she gave, and how much she cared about every person she ever knew. And I think the challenge is for all of us to try and take that forward and pass it forward to the people and the creatives and the aspiring creatives that we meet and have in our lives, and hope we can do it a tenth as well as she did. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Alethea Contis here. I wasn't originally going to say anything, but in true Rox fashion, I sat down to get on this Zoom and there was a notebook sitting right here. So I wrote a poem on the way in. And here it is. We've gathered here to say goodbye, but that is not a word we know. As stars shine brightly in the sky, so too here are the ones we know. You know them now, the secrets kept. They line the path along your way. Beyond us mortals, smiled and wept, who miss you more than words can say. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tez. I was a major fan of Roxy's work. I met her approximately 2010, and I'd literally followed her earlier work, and I was amazed. I mean, like, taken back, because I hadn't read a book in years, and suddenly I'd walked into my library and I'd been given this book, and they're like, read it, you'll love it. And that was Glass Houses. And then ever since, she's been on automatic pre-order. Now, I've heard some of the authors that are speaking today, and in emails and in tweets and at conventions, she's mentioned every single one of you and how wonderful you are, how beautiful you all are, how like fantastic it was to work with you people. And she was so astounding, so beautiful, and so intelligent. And when I met her, I met Kat as well, and I ran up to her after I think it was I'm shaking, sorry. It was when you came to England, Kat. I'll speak to you directly. And we stood in the train station, and I just literally stopped everything, ran at Rox, and I went, "Can I have a cuddle?" At that point, she just went, "Yeah, sure." And she gave me a cuddle. I give Kat a cuddle. And the one thing I was mad at most is Kat had drawn me a dragon on a bag, and I left it behind. Some other fan got that. And at 2014, we went to the Morganville convention, and the fans, it was an unbelievable turnout. And I spoke to her then, and these are just examples. I haven't written anything down. It's just examples of how wonderful she was. She'd sent me things from like all the Morganville. I had Sarah sending me the Lenticulier bookmarks from America, and I'm like, these are the little things that put a smile on your face, and you don't appreciate it at the time. And when you look at them, what you've like collection you've got at the end of it, this is time and effort that Rox put into things to give her fans. And then it's like the short stories she wrote for us all. And I'm speaking from a fan point of view. I'm so happy to have that, because it's more things from Roxanne that I can look back on and say, she wrote this, and she wrote this, and she wrote that. And what helps is I spoke to Rox in emails like all of you had, and social media. And 1 year, she let me read Paper on Fire before it got sent out to be published. And I sent her 800 comments back. And I'm thinking, is that too many? And she went, no, I get more feedback than that. And it was so overwhelmingly incredible that I was given the chance to read something of Roxanne's in an unpublished format. And then from every year on, I got to read at least one of her books. And I'm like, but why do you trust me? I'm a fan. I've met her in person 5 times. And it's because she was just wanting to make me happy. I can't explain it anymore. Everyone that knows Rox will understand this, but Kat, you're awesome. Rachel sang for you. She spoke about you. She loved you a lot. Sarah, thank you so much for putting this together. You are such a wonderful person. You are Rachel's voice for this is going on because I can't say anymore. You understand what I'm trying to say. I'm going to just take a deep breath because I'm babbling. Every one of you has played a major role in Rachel's life, in Roxanne's life. And every conversation we had, she sang for you guys, just like you're singing for her right now. And it's a beautiful thing to watch all of you come on and speak about her. It's a beautiful thing to watch you all remembering her. And the only thing that I can give to that is from a fan's point of view, saying, that's Roxanne Conrad. That is Rachel Caine. She wrote 50 books, 50 plus books, and you've all had something to do with it. And I look at my bookshelf as I say this, and the books are looking at me and screaming, I'm here, guys. I need to be read by you. And the only thing that I can say is when she did the Morganville Comic-Con, the fans that were there were in the thousands. And it was an incredible event, and I was left hungover. And I mean, I slept for a week after that event. And Rachel was up at 5 o'clock in the morning going to Starbucks and writing. And she was commenting on social media, and I'm like, how? How did she do it? And that's when I learned of a nickname, The Machine. The Machine, in which she wrote 6 books that I know of in one year. That's not including anthologies. And that's when I started buying books, like in bulk. I went out and I must have pre-ordered all of them in advance, bought all the backlog, and was just going, what's next? What's next? What's next? And she's like, this is coming, that's coming, this is coming out next year. And this is when I can speak to Anne. She told me of how fantastic it was to work with you. And she told me you had your own language and how you used to talk to each other. And she went, this is because I was looking at drafts and I noticed something had been said. It was to do with a repeated word. And you write something to state when she's overused that word. That's just an example I've got from it. And I chuckle because I'm like, you've got your own language and amongst all this writing when you... And it was just so astounding to see the publishing side to it. And as I said, you just sang Rox's praises, but Rox said how fantastic it was to work with you. And I saw what you like your reaction and when you were speaking about it. But when I spoke to Rox face to face, she couldn't sing enough. And I was so sorry for babbling right now, but there's just so many people on here. And Laura Ann Gilman, I'm going to say this. Your books, she sang for your books. And when you first brought out Silver on the Road, she's like, you need to read this. You must read this. And it's the same with Jonathan Maybury. And there's many others. I mean, none of you know me. You only know me probably from social media where I've sent like 1,000 messages to Rox. And I just want to know that she has spoken about every single one of you. And my book recommendation is the size of, like, it's too long. And it's because Rox, every time she saw one of you guys bring a book out, she's like, that's a matter to read, pal. And she inspired people to want to also read the books that she wanted to read. And it's just a wonderful thing knowing that she left such a legacy behind by being a beautiful, kind, and generous woman. And she's inspired friendship. She's just, you guys are incredible. Rox was incredible. And I just thank you, Sarah, for letting me talk. I'm so sorry. I just wish I could say something more and that I'd written something down, because there's more to say. There's not enough time to say it. So I'm going to shut up. But just thank you all. Seriously, thank you all for being there for Rox, for being Rox's friend, for letting Rox write these. Well, not letting Rox. You couldn't stop Rox. If she wanted to write something, she'd write it. But being a part of her journey and sharing that journey because as a fan, everybody that's been in contact with Rachel makes this world a better place, and that's what Rox did. She was this light that was constantly on, and if there was something that was bothering me or bothering her, she'd write on social media, she'd get it out, and I'd tweet to her, she'd tweet back, and she just had this fantastic presence, like, that just kept giving, and there was no end to it. And I looked at my last email to her, and her last email to me before, and she said that I was late to her, and I'm like, how? How? She's the one that writes the books, and I read the books, and I smile. And every single one of you have just said the same thing. And I'm so sorry for my Yorkshire accent and speaking like cut off. It just, yeah. So if you don't understand me and I'm speaking too fast, I'm so sorry. It's just, Rox brought out the best in people. And when she spoke to people at conventions or book cons where you go and you sit there and you're like, I'm Rachel Caine, I'm going to read you a snippet. Everyone went quiet. And Rachel's just like, let's go. And she'd speak and the room was just like, where's that in front of Rachel Caine? Is this real? And then at the end, she would wait for her fans to bring up books. And I mean, at one time, I brought 30 books with me. And she's like, yep, just wait till the end and I'll sign them all. And she's like, sign in, sign in. How are you? Hi, lovely to meet you. Sign in. And she just had this own presence that was just like, is she human? Hello. It was wonderful. She was an incredible person with so much more to give, and I'm so sorry she was taken so soon. And I wish I could say something more as a comfort to you guys, other than the fact that she was this incredible person, and as everyone knew her as the machine, and that's where I will leave it. Thank you for letting me talk, and thank you for everyone for leaving your little bits.
Hey everybody, I'm Tasha. Just wanted to add just a very brief little story. I had the privilege of working with Roxanne on 3 little books for the Silhouette Bombshell series back in the day. They were Devil's Bargain and Devil's Due, which were the Red Letter Days books, and then an series book called Line of Sight. And when I heard she was ill, I was just looking back at my old emails and I realized I had this email from her from March 8th, 2008. It was a Saturday, and she wrote, wow, big letters. This is huge. My very first ever award in writing ever. I'm so excited. And it was for Line of Sight, which was part of our Athena Force miniseries. And it was such a wonderful story about an FBI agent and all kinds of drama. But later, just this past year, my daughter keeps coming into my office and stealing all my books because she's a reader. And she came up to me and she handed me a book and said, Mom, would I like this? And it was Line of Sight. And I was just like, yes, you will like this. And I also have all these Weather Wardens and Morganville vampires and everything. So just a note that it was such a joy to work with Roxanne. And like everyone said, she made everything fun, funny. She was so smart. And just seeing my daughter hold her book in her hand, I know her legacy will carry on for so long, forever. And I'm so grateful to have had her touch my life and to have been able to be just that little bit a part of hers. And thank you for having me here tonight.
Hi, Julie Murphy. Oh my gosh, I wasn't gonna cry. I was doing such a good job of not crying, and now I'm crying. But I first met Roxanne the year my debut book came out, or well, I guess when I sold it in 2012. And I met her at a convention alongside Kat, and I just remember thinking like, oh my God, there's this icon sitting right next to me, and I can't breathe. And I can't make eye contact with her because if I make eye contact with her, she'll know how obsessed I am with her because she wrote the Morganville Vampire series. And oh my God. And then she turned around and treated me like a peer and just treated me like I was just any other author, any other reader, and just someone who she wanted to talk about business with. And it was like one of the first times I felt like that someone took me seriously as an author, because it's, I mean, still, even now, it's so easy to have that imposter syndrome. And Roxanne was so kind to me and so generous with her advice. And I remember I was so nervous about this stupid book coming out, this first book that I thought like everything was riding on it. And there was so much riding on this one little book. And she just turned to me and said, authors have more lives than cats. Like, just for as long as they'll let you change your name, you can keep going. It's fine. If you fail, then you can join the other, like, just endless list of authors who have failed before you. You know, wear it as a badge of honor. And then more recently, you know, when COVID hit, Roxanne lives not far from me. And so I, you know, would message her back and forth and try to bring, you know, whatever she might need from local stores, because of course she didn't need to be getting out and all of this. And she would always stand on her front porch and try to give me money. And I had to lie to her and tell her I didn't have a PayPal account and she needed to stop being this crazy woman trying to give me money for just running a few little errands. And she would always leave me these little trinkets and like paper sculptures on her porch for me. And like, she's like this little fairy just leaving like little gifts all over for me. And now I have them all over my office, kind of as like a little Roxanne altar. And so I just adored her and admired her, and I still do. So thank you so much, Kat and Sarah, for putting this together. Love you guys.
Of course, Julie is going to make me cry now. Thank you for that. I was not planning on saying anything, but this is Rox, and I felt compelled to. I met Rox my debut year in 2009. A mutual friend of ours had put together a tour of authors from different houses. And I was overwhelmed by the authors on this tour. I was this debut author. These were these amazing authors who were putting it together. And I knew hardly anyone involved. And I emailed the group and I said, is there anyone who would be willing to share a hotel room with me? Because I was new. I didn't, you know, I was still struggling in all of this. And Rox, I didn't even know at the time, emailed back and she said, yes, please share with me. And I showed up and she had this beautiful suite on the ocean. And I thought, I am in so much trouble now. And Rox welcomed me in. And I just remember her being so giving and loving. And I was this brand new author. And like Julie was saying, I was so new to all of this. I didn't know anybody. And here was this amazing woman who had been writing and who knew what she was doing and who was so successful, who welcomed me with open arms. And we shared many a room at conferences after that. And Gwenda's gonna laugh at this, but every time I showed up, Rox always had a bottle of wine waiting. And she would say, I knew you were coming. And then we would sit and we would talk books. And we talked through a lot of books over those bottles of wine. I've been on writing retreats with Rox where I would come stumbling downstairs at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning thinking that I was up early, and Rox would be sitting there and she would have written 10,000 words already. And that was at a time where I didn't even know you could write that many words in a day. And I think that if there's anything I take away from all of this, it is that Rox made every single one of us feel special and seen. That when you saw Rox at a conference, the way she looked at you and she said, it's you, it's you. And she gave you a giant hug and you felt so loved by Rox and so appreciated by Rox. And Kat, we loved you so much. And we thank you for sharing Rox with us. And the same to you, Sarah, because Rox was love. And she loved everyone. She loved her fans. She loved a brand new writer that she had never met before. She loved everyone she came into contact with. And I am so grateful that I got to be loved by her. So thank you.
I guess that brings it to me. I put on makeup today and I swear I could hear Rox cackling across the room, like, why are you doing this? So I did write mine down because I apologize. I'm going to be a sobbing mess. I just want to say I've been Rox's assistant for 11 years, and I want to thank all of you for attending tonight. And I want to thank all of our awesome speakers for putting into words what many of us are feeling. Rox was a humble person and would be so grateful for the outpouring of love and support you all have shown her, not only throughout her career and her battle with cancer, and now in her passing. Sorry, I knew I was going to do this. So she was also one of the most organized people I knew, next to me, as many of you can attest. We are very anal retentive, and we plan for everything all of the time. So it came as no surprise to me that she had written her own obituary. What did come as a surprise was, as I was preparing for this memorial, and I was in a particularly dark place. Sorry. I found a statement that she wrote for her memorial. And I swear it wasn't there before. And it was all of a sudden there just as I needed it to be. Because of course she did. That was the person that she was. She would do anything she could to make things easier for those around her, even as her own life was slipping away. So I'm going to try really, really hard to read you her words now. And I apologize if I have to stop multiple times. Hi, this is Roxanne Conrad, and I wrote a few words for the occasion. Because that sounds like her, doesn't it? My life has been rich. It's been lonely. It's been amazing. It's been desperate. I've been hurt many times and healed almost as many. I've walked in ancient cities and stayed in beautiful places. I grew up on army bases and in dusty rental houses, trailers and cockroach apartments. I've loved my life in all its various forms. But most of all, I have loved you. All of you. Everyone who touched my life has altered my trajectory. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. Everyone has taken something and given something, and I am so very happy with the results. I regret nothing except not having more time to do things and see more of this world and spend more time with all of you. If you want to remember me, read my books. Those are my dreams, my nightmares, heroes and villains. If you don't, that's okay too. I sent them out into the world with love and care, and that's all I can do. To those who are sad I am gone, be sad if you need to, but also do something for me. Find something joyous in the world. Spend time with friends, play a game, read a book, watch a movie, take care of someone else, and love other people because I love you. Now, I know I've said this before many, many times, in fact, and most of you have heard it, but
Rox was one of the kindest, most caring, most compassionate people I have ever met in my entire life. She was truly the best of humanity. So I implore you all to go forward, and when faced with a situation that you don't know what to do, ask yourself, what would Rox do? It will never steer you wrong. I promise. I know we've all said this, but I just want to thank everybody one last time, our attendees and our speakers and Lucienne. Luce has been a lifeline for me and Kat these past few months, as have many of you guys. And I don't know that we could have done this without you. We're going to be leaving this memorial up on her official YouTube channel, and we encourage everybody to leave their thoughts, their stories, their memories, and their love there as a virtual memorial wall. We wish you all health and happiness, laughter and love. And I don't care if your drink is alcoholic or water or Pepsi. Rox would get a kick out of the fact that I'm drinking Moscato out of a Guinness, but here's to Rox. We love her. We will miss her. And we love you all. Good night, everybody.